This is Damian Macy from the Marshall Friends of the Library, and I'm here with Sue Boyer today at her office at 119 South 6th Street in Marshall. It is Wednesday afternoon, October the 22nd, and this is here for the Oral History Project. And with that, I'm going to introduce Sue Boyer, and she can kind of relay some of her background and what she would like to talk about. Sue, you might relay when you were born, a little bit of your family history, and then since we're at the Clark County Title Company office, and relay some of the history of the business also.
Okay, well, I was born in Terre Haute. My mom and dad have lived here since they were married, and they moved over here from Terre Haute. And I was born in Vigo County at the hospitals over there. But we have lived here ever since. We've never moved away, always been here. And I went to school at the North School and never went to South. That was when, if you lived in the north side, you went to the north, you lived south, and bus kids went to the south. And that's where I went to school until the junior high. And in junior high, when we were in the 8th grade is when they built the new junior high, and we moved from the old building into the new junior high school. And when I was in the 8th grade, then I went to high school here and graduated in 1961. And I worked down at the Dog and Suds when I was 13. I started working there at 13, and I worked there till I was a senior in high school. And I started working at Clark County Title Company in 1960 as a OO student, office occupation. I worked a half day and went to school half a day. And then I continued working here until I purchased Clark County Title in 1975 and have been here ever since, and thinking about retiring completely, but whether I do or not is another thing.
Sue, back at the Dog and Suds, did you ever deliver the food on skates?
No, never. It was always, we just always walked. In fact, skates weren't a thing then. I didn't know any place that did it in skates, so at that time.
I believe Marshall, Clark County Title, is one of the older businesses in our community. Is that right?
Right, but it wasn't operated as Clark County Title Company. Cole & Cole owned most of the track books that we now have. And Howard Young started his own business in about 1954, is what I think, from what I can see. And he started as Clark County Title Company, and he worked in competition with Cole & Cole till he bought them out in 1960. I was here at the time he bought them out. And he bought all their track books and all the records they had. And so that is how long actually Clark County Title Company's been around, since 1954, yeah.
When did Cole & Cole begin, and do you have any background or history of that company?
Well, I couldn't tell you the year, but they were here. I would say in the 30s. There was Golden & Cole at one time, then it turned into Cole & Cole. And but I think when Cole & Cole's Frank Cole and E.P. Daly and Fenton Cole were the ones that ran this. And they started the track books, which is what we use now. And they started those books back at entry, and they are from back when the land come into time until we keep them up to date right now. So.
Sue, you used the phrase track book. Could you just kind of outline a little bit of what that is and what it means?
Okay. The track books are books that are, when you want to look up a description, you look it up by the description. And everything that's on that piece of property, like a 40-acre tract, that will specify in there that 40-acre tract, and everything that's on that property since the beginning of time is in those tract books. So
Now, is that somewhat the duplicate of what's over at the courthouse? Or
that's where we write them from the books that are over there in the courthouse. Yes,
is that all typed and handwritten? Or
handwritten.
Okay. Was there be some time that it'd be computerized, or likely
Well,
not?
we talked about that. When I first bought this Chicago Title Company, I had them as a title insurance company. Some of the people that worked that other people that owned in other counties, abstract companies, decided they were going to do that, and they tried to do it, and it was more, they just said it didn't work. But now what's happened now is a lot of the companies have just started at a certain time and then just use those computerized, the books from over there.
For our house, and I know our property we own, we have that abstract of title, which is great history and fun to look back through. But so many times anymore, I understand an abstract is not used, but there's what, title insurance?
Title insurance, yes. Abstracts are almost obsolete. Although people that own farms that have been in the family for years usually have them, and people like to see them because it is the history of the property, and they like, if there is one around, they want it, but they don't get it updated. They just use the back history to them, and we do title insurance on the properties, which what it actually is just a title opinion of who owns the property at the current time. It doesn't show any back history and such like that.
So does a company that's issuing the title insurance then go through the same process of going back through the records to see what?
Well, we're the company that does it. Yeah, I'm an agent for a title insurance company, and we're the ones that issue the policies. They are the title insurance company, and that's what we work under.
How far would the abstracts go back then? You said back to the beginning of time, and I know what you meant. But I think some of the early property was originally started with titles from, was it Palestine?
Well, but they're patents, and they're from the government, and they say Palestine on them, but they're patents, and what it is actually a deed for the President of the United States to the original person that went and purchased the property from the government, and that's what I'm talking about. That's how far our tract books go back. Yes.
Now, were those records like this originated in Palestine? Is that what in our courthouse?
If there aren't a lot of patents, the patents weren't automatically recorded here. We have obtained a lot of the patents because whenever you do abstracts for a coal company, they want that patent, and we've had to write and get those from. Washington is where we get them from, and they send the original. Sometimes they're a certified original, but we do have some original patents in them. But they are, you can tell they're original from the President of the United States. Is what they are.
Is that actually the President's signature on there, or one of his delegates,
yes.
or someone from another office?
It's courting. Some of them do have the president. Some of them it would just be somebody they appointed to sign them.
That could become a valuable document then if you
Well,
had
if you
one
have
of those
the originals, yes.
And I understand a lot of documents have been clipped out with the signatures taken off of them because people are collecting signatures and want to get those.
Right.
That name abstract, what's the real origination of that word, you know?
That I don't know. Nope. It's just, it's called an abstract of title, and that's...
What is the oldest one that you have researched going back?
Oh, we have done new ones before, and what we consider a new one is going all the way back. People maybe purchase a piece of property that's never, it's been in the family for years and years, and it's just come down through the family, and there might not be an abstract on. And so before, when abstracts were the only thing that were used, we did a lot of new, what we consider new abstracts. And we went all the way back to the entry of the patent.
A few years ago, well, quite a few years ago, there was some oil leasing and then a lot of coal leasing in this area. And I think at that time, they were depending on abstracts. Most of it was farmland to
Yes.
research and
Right, and we did a lot of those. That's what I'm talking about when we obtained these patents from Washington. Is when coal company there had to be a patent to that property, and so we always had to order them, and we would do that.
can you ever simply run aground or not find where you start?
No, everything's in there. It's the records that Cole and Cole kept. They are very accurate, and there's everything you need to know in those track books when you're running it back then.
Were the coal and coal folks, did they have a legal background, or you know what?
Yeah, I never did know whether any one of them were an attorney or not, but you know that it was. But they were very thorough. But they also had a loan company along with it.
Okay, that's what. Now, is that where the Sylvia
No,
came in?
no. Actually, Sylvia come from her Gustav Ritter and Boehner.
Ritter and Boehner.
M.L. Boehner. And that she was Ritter's
Right.
daughter, and then she, after they were the two that ran it, and then when she come in and worked, and then of course when they, retired, or most of the time they stayed until they passed on, and she just took it over completely then.
Okay, so there's never any association between the loan company and the abstracting business.
With Cole and Cole, yes, because Cole and Cole did have a loan company. And if you look through some of these old abstracts, you will see a lot of loans to Cole and Cole or to Frank Cole. But some of what they did, which was interesting, is when somebody bought a piece of property, then the people would deed it to Frank Cole or Cole and Cole and get their money from them. Then after they paid them off, they deeded it back to them. Yes. It was,
Cool.
but there was one of these things, they were going to make sure they got their money one way or the other. And,
Could that create a legal issue somewhere?
well, we'd create some problems somewhere if, but I never did ever hear any problem with, like, them not deeding it back. The only thing that I did find they did is when they deeded the property back, and anybody that's familiar with the title work or coal or oil knows that they would retain the mineral rights once they deed it back, and that's how they obtained all their mineral rights around the county. It's from that.
With the mortgages and loans, and I know at one time, I think it was early, maybe people didn't depend on banks, they would depend on getting a mortgage from an individual. Does that create some legal problems or title issues anywhere along the way?
No, it was done usually illegally, yes. And most of the time, if it wasn't family members, there were releases always done, but we've had some problems with family members not releasing because, they would pay them and they didn't even think about releasing the mortgage that was of record. So,
If they paid it off and then someone passed away, where does that leave the clear title?
what we have done before, most of the time they're older ones, and that's what happened is we have affidavits made by the people that have, that were the mortgagors, that had borrowed the money, make affidavits as to that the loans have been paid off over, and of course they were usually older ones at the time.
In the period of, say, a year maybe, how many titles do you review or look up?
Well, I can't tell you. We've had we've had up to like 1,500 to 1,600 orders at one time in a year. We start in, with our order system as like 114. That means that was the first one in 2014, yeah. And we just count them down, but we've had up to that.
Now that indicates there were that many properties changed ownership?
Well, either
necessarily?
that or refinance. We have all the refinance too. Yeah.
So is the business incorporated?
No.
Okay, so it's an individual
Hmm.
business owned by you.
Right. Yes.
What, you said something about the kind of retiring. What kind of background would someone need to get into the title business?
Well, in fact, I have people that are interested now that own title companies in Crawford County. And so, of course, right. And then there are a lot of people that come and say, oh, I want to buy this, want to buy that. They're realtors, and there's just a lot involved that I think a lot of people don't realize what there is involved. And the people that do realize what involved says, I don't want any part of it. So, there's just a lot of liability with it.
Does that require a special liability policy?
Well, you have to get errors and omission insurance.
I'm sure.
Yes.
With the name Cole and Cole, are there any of the Cole family or descendants still around?
Yes. Let's see. I think E.P. Daly's daughter, Barbara, maybe still is alive. And
They had a son named
yeah,
Sonny.
right. And I don't know whether he ever passed away or not. I do know Barbara's still alive, but I'm not sure about the other, whether Sonny's still alive. Elmer Schaller knows a lot of that about that because he's had to get us some different deeds from them for the coal rights. But recently, Coal and Coal, all the oil and gas interests that they have deeded it to a bank in trust. So we're able to sometime, if people want to buy back their oil interest from them, they can do that.
With looking at that abstract that you have laying on the desk there, just out of curiosity, what year did that one begin?
Well, it'll be this one is a town lot, so there isn't any entry in it. It just starts at the date of platting, which this is the original town of Marshall, and it's October 17th, 1835.
And that's when Marshall was found.
Yes.
You've got a lot of interesting history when you start looking through there.
Right, yes.
And our house from Robert Delaney built it, and his will is in the abstract,
Right.
which I found quite unusual.
No, even now, if there is a will that passes the property, we have to show it in the abstract.
Really, I did not realize that.
Yes. We show the entire estate with the will included, yes.
Now, this had some things that he owned in other places, and really
Right.
quite detailed.
Sometimes it has personal such in there, but we show the entire will usually. Is what we do.
Now, these records that you have there, and I look at them being rather valuable and quite important. You have fireproof storage that's required for them here.
We have two vaults in this building, one downstairs and one up.
Oh, okay.
That, I would not have bought it without a vault in it, because the whole time when Clark County Title was upstairs up there, when I first bought it, we were upstairs over where the Marshall Township building is now, and right there, and we had 3 huge safes that had the track books in them, and then we had a couple smaller ones that had other stuff that we considered valuable in it, but the safes had the track books are what I consider the most valuable part of the business right now. Yes.
With the fire that took place over in the courthouse around 1900, I guess there were no records lost in that fire, or major records anyway.
No, I don't think so, but most of the things that we find in our track books clear back to this time right here, they are over there still in the courthouse. So, you know, if we find a deed that's let's see, well, like this plat, it's over there. This says recorded in deed record B, page 133, the plat of the original town of Marshall. You can go over there and get deed record B at that page, and that plat is in the original plat. The original plat that was drawn out, it's in there.
Can you get copies of those if
Yes.
someone wants a photocopy?
Yes, they will take them over there for you.
Now I see that is all typed. At some point in time, they obviously started typing them. We started there earlier, and you said practically everything was handwritten. Now that would have been in the original document.
Right, the original documents over in the courthouse are handwritten. Yes.
So someone had to then read that and transcribe it and type it.
Right. Yes. And the reading, when you first start in, you think there's no way I can read this, but you eventually learn, and you can just read it just like you're reading anything.
Like a novel?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the way it is. It does. So.
What determined the size? I notice practically all abstracts are the narrow, about 3.5 or 4 inches wide. Was there something that said they should be that size somewhere?
I don't know. When the first ones that Cole & Co. did were fold-up ones. They were like either legal size or 8.5 by 11, and then they had written them out even in the abstracts itself in those old ones, and then they folded them up to make it this size. And then eventually they started making the ones like this. Now when Howard Young first started the Clark County Title Company, he made them in abstracts in 8.5 by 11, and what he did is took photos of all the documents, and so that's why he did that, and all the photos of those documents were in the abstract, and everything wasn't typed. There were some things that had to be typed because you couldn't get photos of them, but otherwise.
Our house abstract is 8.5 by 11, but all the farms and the other properties are all the same.
Right. And eventually what we did with those 8.5 by 11 abstracts that Howard Young used to make, when we would get those back in to extend, when it was sold, they would bring it in and we'd have to bring it down to date. Well, we just made what we called a supplemental and made them into the small ones. And because we didn't do photocopies anymore like he did, and they were all typed. And most attorneys that examine the abstract like these little ones, because when we type them, we picked out the important things. They weren't typed in full like your 8.5 by 11. That's the full document. We picked out the most important things and put in there, and that's what the attorney wanted to see, and they just had to flip through here, and they didn't have to hunt for that stuff when they examined the title.
You mentioned one thing, again, just looking at buildings and the history of Marshall. Where was the first title company office, Cole & Cole's? Do you know?
Yes, it was over there where Dan Harper is right now, right there.
And then it moved from there to, what, the second floor of the
Well, that's
Archer?
no, the second floor, what?
You said that you were over.
Well, no, that was Clark County Title Company.
Yes.
When Howard Young started,
Okay.
he started it, that's where he was. But they were still over there at the time, until he bought them out in 60, and then, they just closed down Cole & Cole at the time.
And merged it into the office on Archer Avenue?
Well, they didn't merge. He bought them out,
This, okay.
more or less. He bought the track books.
So really, there's only been 3 offices for title work. Is that right there? Archer Avenue and here?
No, after I bought it, and I can't remember when it was, I moved the office over to KP Building. We were there for several years. Yes, we moved all those safes down from there, and where Carolyn's Carolyn Shawler's beauty shop is, and straight over to the west, I had that whole entire building except for where the other beauty shop is on this side.
And that was in the new building. That was after
Yeah,
the
it was a new
fire in
building.
the new building.
Yeah.
So then you moved from there, because I know this was the savings and loan
Right.
office.
Yeah. And I bought this then when first Federal built their new building. Then I'd come over and approached them to buy this. And so I bought it in '94, but didn't move over here for a couple years because we still had the office in the courthouse, in the sheriff's, where the sheriff's
Yeah.
office where it was, and now it's the probation office. And because I knew one day they would make me move out, they did. So anyway,
Well, thank you so much, Sue, because you filled in a lot of things that I did not know, and a lot of the history of not only this particular business, but kind of some of the mechanics of how it's
right.
done. And it sounds like you plan to be here at least for a little while until someone buys the business.
Right. That's right.
And what are your plans for retirement?
Probably the same thing I always done: babysit and work out in the yard.
Well, you take care of a beautiful yard, and it's always nice to drive by and see that. I like your little fountain, too, with the
Oh.
light in it.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Sue. It's been a delight, and this is some of the additional Marshall history that's going to be available for people to see and review.
Okay.
appreciate
Thank
that.
you. Thanks.